Good evening. The local elections in England have largely seen voters stick with the status quo, with neither of the two main parties able to celebrate significant gains. Labour has fallen short of the expectations of many in the party and failed to make the inroads supporters had hoped for. The Conservatives lost councillors but outperformed predictions. The Conservatives took control of Barnet, which many attribute directly to the Labour row over anti-Semitism. They also won Basildon, Peterborough and Redditch, but they lost control of 6 councils. 2 went to Labour, Kirklees in Yorkshire and Plymouth. Labour lost the leadership of Derby and Nuneaton, which went to no overall control. The Liberal Democrat leader Vince Cable said his party winning control of 4 councils from the Tories, Richmond upon Thames, Three Rivers in Hertfordshire, South Cambridgeshire and Kingston upon Thames, marked the start of the party's fight back. But it was a near wipeout for UKIP. They won on average just over 6% of the vote for the council seats that they fought, losing 123 councillors. On councillors, the tally a short time ago looks like this. Labour gained 59, Conservatives lost 31, Lib Dems gained 75 and the Greens were up 8. The BBC analysis of the vote suggests that in a general election, the two main parties would be neck and neck on a projected vote share of 35% each, with the Liberal Democrats on 16. Here's our political editor, Laura Kuensberg.
There'd been a lot of Tory nerves, but they held them for the most part.
Congratulations, Councillor.
Here in a famous Tory council, Wandsworth, they clung on, but only just.
They thought they could take control. This was one of their top targets and they threw everything at it. But they failed.
The Prime Minister and her party are relieved to have held on in areas like this, rather than being overjoyed to be making any progress. What do you think it says about the Tories right now that Labour ran it so close in such a traditional Tory area?
Well, it's not surprising. I mean, there are big national issues out there which they attempted to capitalise on.
Ultimately, it was, the cliche is bins, not Brexit, but actually that was the thing that made the difference.
I think that the result last night showed that they're all mouth and not a lot of trouser, if that's the word.
It wasn't a victory lap, but a tour of the ground they'd held. The Tories did lose seats, but only 2 councils. By traditional standards for a party that's been in power for 8 years, you can see from their faces that's better than they'd hoped.
Thank you very much.
Is he walking towards power, though? Labour did edge up.
Well done, you. That's brilliant. Thank you. Fantastic.
Taking 2 councils, Plymouth and Kirklees, but losing 3 others. Dramatic strides to number 10. Not quite.
We're absolutely ready for it. We've got members, we've got organisation, we've got enthusiasm. Look at these people here who've come out this morning, having been up all night at the Count in Plymouth, celebrating. That's what Labour's about.
So we haven't seen Pete Corbyn then?
No, there's much more to come and it's going to get even better.
His legions of supporters agree.
I'm really excited for what Plymouth can come up with and for what Labour can do for us.
Thrilled about the Plymouth result. Absolutely thrilled. I think it's about time.
They certainly had reasons to be cheerful round the country, pushing the Tories out of power in Trafford, the only patch of blue in a northwest sea of red. Piling on council seats in the cities, but not enough to grab their high-profile targets in London. The mayor there left before the disappointment of one of the big results.
Conservatives, 3,567.
And Labour's hopes of capturing Barnet, where there's a big Jewish population, crashed, partly due to anti-Semitism in the party.
You put that down to the anti-Semitism around.
Looking at how the votes went in different wards, that was certainly the biggest factor.
And outside the cities, Labour couldn't stop many towns from turning Tory. Swindon stayed blue. They took Basildon, Peterborough. The Conservatives scooping up the most from voters deserting UKIP in their droves. But the Lib Dems burst out of their lethargy, taking from the Tories. The only party promising a public vote on the Brexit deal turned pockets like Tory Richmond yellow.
Whether it's against Labour or Conservatives, in Brexit or Remain country, we're reasserting ourselves as a major national force, down to a lot of hard work and effort, and I just want to thank all of you for what you've achieved.
But some of that success was down to happy Greens working alongside. They gained a sprinkling of seats themselves.
We're feeling incredibly positive. It's exceeded our expectations. We've broken through onto 5 new councils. We managed to defend a lot of seats that were being attacked by the bigger parties.
This place had almost got used to turmoil every time voters went to the polls. But this time round, the public's chosen something like the status quo. Labour edging up a little, the Tories slipping slightly. But that doesn't mean that nothing has changed. Perhaps the lack of movement tells us both main parties are even more firmly stuck in their comfort zone.
For Labour, some disappointment, but no disaster.
Don't worry, we're going to be here a lot more as well.
For the Tories, a sigh of relief rather than celebration.
You tempted to call a snap general election, Prime Minister?
No, I think we'll just enjoy this.
Voters, perhaps not yet ready for that kind of dramatic change. Laura Koonsberg, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, as we heard there, Labour held on to their strongholds in a number of inner cities, including Birmingham, but they failed to win some key target seats, like Wandsworth and Swindon, where our Deputy Political Editor John Pienaar has been talking to voters.
We know how people voted, those that bothered. The question now is why.
Good morning, this is BBC 5 Live. It's your call. We are in Wandsworth this morning, where Labour didn't get over the line.
But we want to hear from you wherever you are.
I didn't vote. I don't have any faith in UK politics, and I don't feel there's any real leaders to vote for, so there's no point in voting at the moment.
Not everyone turned down all the choices on offer. Which way did you go?
Conservative.
Why was that?
I've lived here for the last 30 years and enjoyed one of the lowest council taxes in the country throughout that period.
You voted with your wallet?
Completely, and why would I want to vote any other way?
Here's Pete in Trafford. How did you vote, Pete?
I voted Labour for the first time, purely based on local issues. I've always been a Tory voter, but living here, it just put me off.
Quickly, the picture.
Well, look, these were local elections. People weren't choosing a government, and they knew that. But we're still seeing from the results that we've got what a divided, polarised country this is, and more so than ever after Brexit. And even so, people in a local election like this one have any number of different reasons for how they cast their vote. Local elections, what about you?
Well, in the end, I voted Lib Dem because I couldn't be bothered with the other two, just sick of them, really. And honestly, I wish someone in the council would bring through on compost bins.
That's the big issue for you, compost bins?
Compost bins, yes. So I don't understand why the council can't put in compost bins so we can reduce waste. It's something other countries do.
How did you vote, and tell us why?
I voted for Labour because I believe that they are still working for the people, the working class.
OK, Jeremy Corbyn, he's a polarising figure, isn't he? We got this text into the phone in from Morris in Manchester. I voted Conservative because of my disdain for Jeremy Corbyn and his cronies. Is Jeremy a plus or a minus?
He can be a minus at times, but at the end of the day, Labour's not just one person.
The messages from around the country showed strong feelings deeply split. Labour was the party to stop the poor paying for the greed of the rich again, said one. A Tory supporter texted, governments always get a bashing in local elections. This was an absolute disaster for Corbyn. He made this trip 3 times, but in Swindon, Labour only gained a single seat. Hard effort gone to waste. Party loyalty's often an unbreakable habit. However you describe yourself.
An historic Conservative voter.
It's in your blood.
It's in my blood. I can't ever imagine voting for any other party.
I never vote. Don't believe in none of them.
None of them?
None of them. Load of rubbish.
I used to vote for Conservative before.
Okay, you voted Conservative before, but Labour this time?
Yeah.
So what changed your mind?
To bring somebody new to the council this time.
What with Brexit, internal struggles, it's harder now for any party to get to the top of the pile. Not much changed in these elections. But then so many old rules of politics have ended up on the scrap heap. John Pienaar, BBC News, Swindon.
Sinn Féin has won the West Tyrone by-election. The party's successful candidate, Orla Begley, becomes the first woman to hold the seat, But as with all Sinn Féin MPs, she won't take her place at Westminster. Well, let's come back to the local council elections. Our political editor, Laura Kuenssberg, is in Westminster for us tonight. So, Laura, while all the parties are putting their best foot forward, none can claim significant victories tonight.
Well, Fiona, look, we must remember this is a particular set of results based on a particular set of contests around England. There weren't elections in Scotland, Northern Ireland or Wales. So we have to introduce some big fat caveats when we're trying to translate that into any kind of national result. But those caveats given, it is possible to use what's happened in the last 24 hours to project some kind of sense into what might happen if there were to be a general election anytime soon. And what these results suggest is that both of the main Westminster parties would pretty much be level pegging. It might be something that would feel pretty much like a dead heat. And what that means really is that we'd been in the kind of situation where whatever the political roller coasters of the last 6 months, we'd end up with neither Labour nor the Conservatives able to rule on their own. We'd have a kind of continuation, not just of a hung parliament, but of a hung kind of politics. Now, both of the main parties have their difficulties, both of them have their divisions. But given how even these results suggest they truly are, the question for Theresa May and for Jeremy Corbyn is which one of them is really willing, if able, to really try to do something different to be able to break out of that stalemate.
Laura at Westminster, thank you.